Hi everybody, welcome to Kelinting Reads, where we talk about books in the horror genre or at least horror adjacent. My name is Dimas and I'm your host. Today I'm going to review this book, Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. Now, I enjoyed Riley Sager's previous book, Final Girls. It was a clever twist on the slasher genre. It basically tells us about what happens to the final girls from slasher movies after the end credits roll. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the term final girls, this is a terminology used by a film academic, Carol J. Clover, in her book Men, Women, and Chainsaws, Gender in Modern Horror Films. She used the term final girls to describe the last girl in slasher movies who get to confront the killer and survives the ordeal. Now, in slasher movies of the 70s and the 80s, usually the girl who survives the big chase scene in the end have certain characteristics. She is usually described as being independent, does not have a boyfriend, does not drink or do drugs, or even have sex. So basically, it almost seems like she is not being killed because she is the idealized good girl compared to her friends, whatever that means. Now, Riley Sager's book, Final Girls, poses this question. What happens to those girls after the movie has ended and the audiences have left? Well, it turns out those girls suffer from PTSD as the results of those events. They need endless medication and therapy to be able to cope. Some of them even end up unable to cope at all. Now, this dark and yet very human side of these final girls are explored in that book, and it makes for an interesting reading. The way Riley Sager writes makes everything, even some of the darker stuff, feels somewhat still fun for us to read. This is because he threads the story between the lines of pulpy and gritty at the same time. Throughout the story, there are flashbacks to when the main character was trying to escape the killer that was chasing her throughout the camping grounds. That is when the story exudes its slashery and pulpy vibes. But the writer also interjects those flashback scenes with the aftermath of the events. Suddenly, readers are presented with the same character that is now grittier, plagued by nightmares, guilt, and trauma of the horrible events. That juxtaposition, for me, makes the story feel very dynamic and exciting. I feel like as the story progresses, I learn more and more about not only what happened in the past, but also what is happening in the present day with our main character. Page after page, the two timelines carried me to the climax, where all the mysteries and the surprises are revealed. Needless to say, I enjoyed Final Girls immensely. I didn't think twice to buy Home Before Dark because I love the way he writes. I got even more excited when I read that Home Before Dark is a riff on haunted house stories, particularly haunted house stories that are claimed to be real. Now, can Home Before Dark does for haunted house stories what Final Girls did for slasher movies? Well, here is my review. Home Before Dark tells us about Maggie Holt, a 30-something interior designer who just recently lost her father due to an illness. Her father was Ewan Holt, a journalist-turned-writer who has written a book called House of Horrors, a true story. The book is supposedly a true account of how Maggie's family stayed in a haunted house for 20 days before eventually left and vowed never to return. Now, 25 years ago, when Maggie was still 5 years old, her family, which consists of her father, her mother, and herself, moved to a small town of Bartleby. Her parents just bought this very big old house that the locals call the Bainbury Hall. As you can probably guess, this is the supposedly haunted house that Maggie's father would eventually write about in his book right after he and his family escaped from it 20 days later. In the first few chapters of the book, when the family was touring the house, we are informed about Bainbury Hall's tragic history. Previous owners of the house were always hit by tragedy. People have died there in mysterious ways. Even so, Maggie's father still decided to buy the house since it was cheap for its size, and because as an aspiring writer, he hoped to be able to get inspiration from the mysterious history of the house. Little did he know that he was about to have his wish come true, albeit at a price. We understand from the book's opening chapter that adult Maggie eventually inherited Bainbury Hall upon the death of her father. Maggie was surprised to learn that her father still owns the house even after all this time. However, as the new owner of the house, she realizes that now she has the chance to find out whether everything that her father wrote about in his book is true. You see, growing up, Maggie just cannot stand being recognized as that little girl whose family at one time lived in the supposedly haunted house. Even though her father's book was very successful and basically saved the family from their financial struggles, it also tore the family apart. Maggie's parents got divorced not long after the book's release, and Maggie knows that it was not because of any infidelity. She suspects that her mom just cannot participate any longer in the lies fabricated by her father in his book. Maggie truly believes that the entire account written by her father in his book are all lies because she just doesn't remember anything about what happened during their stay at Bainbury Hall all those years ago. So the minute she knows that she is now the owner of Bainbury Hall, she made it her mission to go back to that house in hoping to uncover the truth about what really happened in Bainbury Hall. Even though during his final moments, her father has warned Maggie to never return to Bainbury Hall because it is not safe for her. Upon arriving at Bainbury Hall, she is struck with how similar the house and all of its parts are with the description that she read in her father's book. At first, she thought that, of course, her father would tell the truth about the house, but lied about all of the other paranormal happenings. However, during her stay at Bainbury Hall, she gradually experiences the same things that her father wrote about in his book. For example, the big chandelier turns itself on every so often. There is always strange sounds coming from the third floor at the break of dawn, where the previous owner was found dead. Maggie also feels like she's being watched whenever she tries to sleep at night. All of those weird happenings make Maggie think that maybe what her father wrote about in his book is true, that Bainbury Hall is indeed haunted, and that Maggie should not have gone back to that house. But by the time she finds out the truth, everything may be too late. Now, I enjoyed the book very much. The writer manages to keep the central mystery interesting throughout the book. This is because he constantly plays with our expectations. At one time, we are led to believe that the Bainbury Hall is indeed haunted, but at other times, we are not so sure. This is because the writer gives us a lot of red herrings and clues that sometimes feels like they cancel each other out. So it makes for an arresting reading experience. And just like in his previous book, Final Girls, here we are also presented with two timelines. The first is the present-day timeline with adult Maggie trying to uncover the truth about the things her father wrote. The second timeline is actually the exact time when 5-year-old Maggie and her family stayed in Bainbury Hall, and it is told from her father's perspective. Not only that, this second timeline is actually the exact words from the book that is written by her father. So the readers get to read the real accounts written in the book and also see the adult Maggie trying to uncover the truth behind the book 25 years later. It is really mesmerizing stuff. I find that the twists and revelations in the end, while definitely surprising and generally well thought out, didn't have the same impact as the twists and revelations in Final Girls. This could be due to my own expectations, and if I go into more detail, I'm afraid that I will travel to spoiler territory, which I'm not going to do. However, my feelings about the final twist does not change my view that the book is a very entertaining read. The mystery is intriguing, it is creepy at times, and at one point even scary, especially for people like me who hate certain slithering reptiles. All in all, I give Home Before Dark by Riley Sager a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It has an intriguing mystery, a well thought out concept, and it successfully toys with my expectations. Riley Sager is fast becoming my go-to writer if I'm in the mood for twisty horror thrillers, and I cannot wait to get my hands on his other books. So that is my review of Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. If you've read it, let me know what you think of it in the comment section down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you again in the next book review video.